Dan, if I could tell moms one thing, it would be to break up with dairy. You know, your pediatrician may not tell you this, but you do not need to feed your kids any dairy, okay? So break up with it, all right? This is what I want you to do. If your pediatrician is saying to you, recommending that you give your kids cow's milk, all right? And that's what I mean by dairy, cow's milk. Okay, because Dan will talk a little bit about some non-dairy options, non-cow's milk options. But if they're recommending that you give your kids any cow's milk, I want you to ask your pediatrician or your primary care physician, that sounds really interesting. Can you give me some more information about how cow's milk supports my kids' health, boosts their immune system, gives them more energy, keeps them from getting acne? Okay, could you please give me some science or evidence that that's a good idea, that we should be giving our kids cow's milk?
And then be careful, because some of that evidence that is in the positive will be written by the dairy industry. So you also have to know where that source is coming from.
Dan's going to give you the science about why it is a great idea to do what we did 10 years ago, and that is to dump that cow's milk down the drain, draw a line in the sand, and don't get that stuff in your house anymore.
No.
Ever. Don't
Don't
give it
need
to
it.
your kids. Okay? Especially don't give it to your kids. All right? So Dan's going to give you the science.
Yeah.
He's going to give you the non-cow's milk, okay, dairy-free milk options. In about 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to go check on my phone to see if you guys have any questions or comments. Put them in the chat, and Dan will answer them. Okay? All right. Go for it.
We thought about breaking up with dairy because it really isn't that person or that thing that will ever love you back. And we love to encourage people to eat foods that love you back. Dairy products have problems. The biggest things are the big three. They have the wrong protein. Yes, they're a source of protein. And when we're 0 to 1 year old, when we're a newborn, we need that growth protein to get ourselves to grow. You know that humans grow the most in their first year of life, and it's because of the mother's milk that has that casein protein, which is a growth protein. There are many growth proteins that we have in our bodies, and that's one that is produced in mother's milk. Well, in cow's milk, it's 80% of the protein. Only 20% of cow's milk is whey protein. And when you look at human breast milk, it's the absolute opposite, a complete flip, where it's 80% whey protein, and then 20% casein protein, that growth protein. And when studied, casein protein has even been shown to be carcinogenic. We are making cells in our bodies all the time that can grow abnormally. It's hard for Mother Nature to keep it all perfect all the time. Why do we want to encourage those cells that are not normal to us to grow? And when we give them and feed them more casein protein, that encourages them to grow. The second thing is saturated fat, the wrong fat. And we know that animal products have a lot of saturated fat. And that also goes for milk, especially cow's milk. Even if you bought non-fat milk, yes, you can say that, or low-fat milk, that you're getting less saturated fat. But we don't need any saturated fat. Our bodies can make all the saturated fats that we need. If we eat unsaturated fats, or even those special fats that are essential to us, those omega-3 fatty acids that we need, then our bodies will be just fine. We don't need any saturated fats. And all of the dietary guidelines by the government, even by the U.S. government, even say we should restrict the amount of saturated fats that we eat. The reason for that is they're the biggest risk factor for our cholesterol, our low density cholesterol production, that LDL, that bad cholesterol. And anytime you increase your LDL, you're increasing your risk for cardiovascular disease. our cholesterol, especially our LDL, is the number one risk factor for cardiovascular disease. The number one killer of both men and women, not only in this country, but in the whole world. So anytime that we can decrease the amount of saturated fats in our diet, the better off we are with keeping our cholesterol real low. The third, and many of us don't realize this, is how much sugar there is in milk and dairy products. Sugar is there because we want our newborns to gravitate towards eating and drinking more of their mother's milk. Cows are the same. There's lots of sugar, not just what we know about. Like many of us know that people are very sensitive to the lactose that's in cow's milk, but there's also galactose. And between those two sugars, that just gives that product a lot more sugar than we need. Maybe as young newborns, yes, the energy our body needs, the fuel that our cells need in order to grow, in order to mature, in order to form new cells, new body parts that we're developing as a newborn. Yes, it's important, but especially not as mature young people, or even teenagers, as Pamela said, or even especially as mature adults. Definitely don't need any extra sugar in our bodies. And that only creates more problems with triglycerides, more problems with putting on weight, as our body takes that energy and conserves it, puts it into storage in our fat cells. So 3 things that keep us from ever recommending dairy products to anybody would be wrong protein, that growth promoting casein protein, arguably a carcinogenic when you look at it scientifically, as it increases the growth of our cells. 2, it's got the wrong fat, the saturated fat, like in all animal products, loaded with saturated fat, the number one contributor to the number one risk factor for cardiovascular disease. That's killing, the number one killer all over the world for both men and women. And 3rd, the type of sugar, too much sugar. I've even heard that a 10-ounce glass of milk has as much sugar as a 10-ounce glass of soda. And everybody's like, oh no, I don't drink soda. It's not really just about soda. It's where you're getting all your sugars from. So if we can break up with dairy, we'll lower the amount of sugars that we're intaking. If you want to say, what can I have then? Dan, if I'm going to make my pancakes, what can I make my pancakes with? Dan, if I make my oat bowl, what do I put in my oat bowl? Is it just water now that all I can use? I mean, I'm not going to put my coffee in my oat bowl. What else can I have? Well, there are, as Pamela mentioned, some dairy-free products that are better for you that you can use in some of your creations that you make in order to create a meal plan or a nutrition plan that's good for you. Very popular are things like oat milk, things like almond milk, and even soy milk. One of the things you have to look at, though, is that the companies put a lot of sugar in those products. Make sure, if you're going to use almond milk, oat milk, or soy milk, that you use the unsweetened versions. And it's clearly marked on the package. You just have to look and make sure you see it. Most of the time it's bright pink, or it's a different color than the packaging to make it stand out. So just take that extra second to make sure that you're buying the unsweetened version. And if you are out with your friends and, you don't want to look like you're a weirdo and, it's a summer day and they're all getting ice cream. Yes, you can get a non-dairy version. Most places now have non-dairy versions or non-dairy options of their products. Things like almond milk ice cream, things like even coconut milk ice cream could be an option for a once in a while time that you're with friends and family and you just don't want to seem weird, or you want to participate in all the fun and social activities. The big thing is, in your life, we were all taught at a young age how good milk is for us. But as I said earlier, most of what's been published has been published sponsored by the dairy industry. If you look, you don't see as many ads. You don't see ads, milk does the body good, because it's really not true. And there has been some cases where these ads have been taken off the market because they're just not telling the truth. And the FDA says you have to at least give people the truth about your products if you're going to advertise your products. So our second nutritional principle would be break up with dairy. Wrong protein, wrong fats, and way too much sugar. Not what our body needs. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat. I haven't seen any that have come up. But hey, if there's one thing you can do for your family, if you want to take that first step in developing a nutrition plan, getting your pile of food that you know is going to keep you healthy and increase your energy, keep your weight under control, and give yourself that longevity that we're all looking for. Getting more life to your years, not so important at getting more years to your life, but let's get that life to our years. First step, let's break up with dairy. I will see you guys again on the next video as we get into taking more and more of these nutrition principles to heart.